The experience of my day was you just walked in, something that was cracking on, and you watched. You may have had the odd meeting. It was all a little bit awkward for everyone because you're on your own often. That's not the way to look after young people these days.
Hello and welcome to the meeting room. I'm Paul Harvey. Work experience is broken. That's what a growing number of people in the events industry have come to conclude. One organisation right at the centre of that debate is the Power of Events, the national initiative working to raise awareness of the event sector and inspire the next generation. This spring, the Power of Events is running an experience of work pilot programme, testing what meaningful, scalable work experience looks like in 2026. From small groups to large cohorts, logistics to cost, ambition to reality, it's an honest attempt to answer a tough question. Is the industry ready to deliver proper work experience at scale, or are we still just talking about it? Joining me on the meeting room from the Power of Events to talk about all of this and more, I'm delighted to say we're joined by Sophie Beasor and Rick Stainton. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. Lovely to be here.
Great to be here.
Be honest, how broken is the current work experience model?
Well, I'll let Sophie come in on her engagement with the schools and the young people's perspective, because that's as equally important as our industry perspective. We go around the country across all our different sectors that we represent and showcase, talking to hundreds of businesses, most of them supporters and partners of the Power Events, just asking them what's going on and so on. And one of the key things, obviously, that they spoke to about us a couple of years ago was engaging with young people in schools. More recently, because the schools engagement program that we've been running has been brilliantly supported and successful, a lot of them asking sort of what's next. And what's come up on that conversation is we'd really like to get young people into our offices on site, but we're really concerned about the drain of resources, the time it would take. What do we do with them during the day, the safeguarding, the insurance side. But most importantly, there is a bit of a conversation in certain sectors anyway about effectively using work experience people for, slave labour and just giving them awful menial tasks, make the coffee, do the paper clips, photocopying, whatever it might be, as opposed to paying someone to do it, or perhaps on site, badging up lanyards and so on, and basically taking the mickey out of what should be a very worthwhile and rewarding experience for both the employee or potential employee, the person coming from the school, but also for the employer to have a sort of a mutual partnership in helping each other develop careers. So there's a sensitivity to not doing it right. There's a concern and barriers of doing it, but it being really draining on resources and worrying about reputational elements. But most of all, I think historically, the whole work experience thing for decades has been a sort of thrust upon some employers, and they don't really have a plan, they have a strategy behind it, and some have taken advantage of it, which has therefore put a bit of a tag on it, which is, a real shame.
Sophie?
I think the narrative has changed within schools. So when I was in school, it was work experiences. You need to go and get a job. Whereas now the narrative around careers, sort of new framework around Equal X, which is what we're responding to with experience of work, changes that format. So rather than waiting until you're about to leave school and then you go and do a week's worth of work experience at your dad's office and it's completely pointless, as Rick just spoke to, now there's a three-stage process. Equal X starts with inspiring in schools. So we're reaching 100% of kids. That's what our schools engagement program already does. Then the second stage is workplace experiences. So it's not about going in and doing a week's worth of opportunity. It's about being exposed and seeing in a single day what different organisations get up to. And that's reaching groups of sort of between 5 and 50 young people. So by the time you get to stage 3, towards the end of school, these kids have been thinking about their careers for possibly 5 years by that point, meaning that it's more meaningful not only for the young people who are going in with intention, but it's meaningful for the employers because they have young people who actually want to be there.
Just to add, Equal X, if you're not aware, is a new mandate that the government have given all schools across the country last year, I think launching officially this summer?
In
September this year, that all children should have these 3 stages, including 10 days of work experience before they leave school, for every child. So for the schools, that's like a massive challenge, but a great opportunity if they have the relationships with industry to be able to fill those opportunities, which hopefully is where we come in.
There is an opportunity with Equal X for you guys to get involved and inspire people to be involved with the events industry. Is that right?
Absolutely. And through our work with the Schools Engagement Programme, which has been live for 2 years now, and it reached 130,000 young people, 9 active regions. We've got dozens of sponsors. That work has allowed us to build trust and relationships across the country. And one of those key relationships is a company called Careers and Enterprise Company. They were the ones who developed and backed EqualX framework. So the events industry, through Power of Events, are one of the first industries out of the gate to get involved in this framework. There is this really untapped opportunity that other industries just aren't meeting that we can. At the end of the day, the events industry brings people together in spaces. That's what we do in its simplest form. So all we're asking is that you do that with young people, showcase the opportunities within your business, showcase what it is that you do.
The whole point of is work experience broken? I think most companies really have the values, and we've seen the will to want to engage the next generation, hence the massive support of the schools program across the country. But then to ask them not just to be an ambassador as individuals within a company and go into a school, but the next of opening their doors, having to look after 5, 10, 15, 20 young people for a day with engageable content format. There's a lot of barriers to that. There's a lot of concerns about time, as I said. There's a lot of concerns about the insurance and the safeguarding. There's a lot of concerns about doing it right reputationally. So our mission, and what we can talk about with the Experience of Work program we're launching, is taking all those barriers away, making it really easy and scalable so that all those barriers are confronted and dissolved by the hard work we've done to provide a toolkit that all employers, whether they're small businesses or huge businesses, whether it's on-site, build, venue, agencies, suppliers, organisers, in a warehouse or an office environment, the barriers and the concerns and the time-consuming potential to do this one-off. Don't reinvent the wheel. We've done the hard work for you, and that's what we're trying to encourage as a next stage, as Sophie said, to the schools engagement momentum, is deeper dive and make it really easy for the industry to adopt it, because they're busy with their day jobs, right? We know that, and we respect that, and we're most sensitive to that.
And I think just to add to that, we're not naive to the fact that businesses are already doing this. There are absolutely some wonderful businesses, the team, formerly Wasserman being one of them, that we're working with that already bring young people into their businesses. So it's not about telling them not to do it because we are gospel. It's about involving them in this program so that we, in a nationwide, industry-wide program, can better monitor it, can better quality assure it, can make sure that we are aligned where the schools need to be. And the Schools Engagement Program portal allows us to do that. That hard work that we've already done, talking to companies that already have these models in play, they've expressed to us the sort of challenges of building trust with schools, the challenges of even getting in touch with them in the first place. By working with Power of Events within the pilots that we're going through at the moment and the full program once we launch next year, means that we've cut that barrier out for you. We've already got those relationships. We've already got the tried and tested format. You just deliver it, and it's so simple and easy for businesses to get involved.
Exactly. And we can make it compliant to EqualX, which they may or may not be fully aware of, which takes a lot of time to get that right. All those challenges, whether you haven't done it before or you're already doing it, but you just want to scale it up to make it a bit more up-to-date, relevant to EqualX, or include the full scope of the industry content that we've already got. The toolkit's there to help all levels of stages of wherever an employee's at, yeah.
So the Experience of Work pilot program, so it's called Experience of Work rather than Work Experience.
Absolutely.
Why was that?
Well, work experience has a bit of a tag to it, as I've already mentioned, but experience of work is exactly what it says on the tin. It's one day where you're experiencing going into a workplace, a work environment. You remember, these are 13, 14, 15-year-olds that probably have never walked into anything like an office, a warehouse environment. So you're experiencing that work environment. And then if you interact with a number of different departments and areas of interest that particular on-site build for an exhibition or a conference or product launch, or within a warehouse which has a variety of kit in different departments, monitoring different areas of AV, through to an agency, for example, that might have logistics or design or creative, HR, finance, whatever it might be. They're experiencing that work environment. So it's not doing the work. It's not experiencing a week-long work where I would have done at my dad's company 30 years ago and sit there twiddling my thumbs, maybe saying hi to someone in the canteen on my own, feeling incredibly intimidated and sort of not really engaging with the work, not really meeting a lot of variety of people in a structured way. So in one day, experiencing a work environment, meeting a variety of people, different departments, and walking away with, having done as part of the program, some workshops with 1 or 2 people, a little challenge, embedding them in it without pretending it's actual volunteer work. It's a very different slant on it, but it makes the younger people probably feel a little bit more looked after, comfortable. It's structured around them. The experience of my day was you just walked in, something that was cracking on, and you watched. You may have had the odd meeting. It was all a little bit awkward for everyone because you're on your own often. That's not the way to look after young people these days. You need to put structure behind it, have them feel part of something community-wise with 5, 10, 15 of their peers. And within a day, they walk away feeling elevated, inspired, educated, but also it was customised to them. And that takes a lot of work. And I think in one day we can do that. That's the difference.
So that's the aim. How is it going so far?
So the pilot, we've honestly been a little bit blown away by it. So experience of work is in response to the Equal X framework, but internally at Power of Events, we've only been talking about this since January. It's a really new thing. And in reaching out to industry through our advisory board, through sort of friends of the company, no one has said no to us. If I'm honest, we were looking for kind of 3-4 pilots to just sort of test it and see how it went, made sure that we had an understanding of the format, that it worked with the schools, that it worked through the portal.
Across a variety of sectors as well.
Absolutely.
So we had a variety, yeah.
And what has happened is that we've ended up with 8, 9 pilots because everyone we've floated it with has gone absolutely. And what's really exciting about that is they've not just said, yeah, absolutely, they've made it really meaningful. Our very first pilot was at the O2. This was back during Careers Week, and we managed to tick a whole bunch of boxes. It was National Careers Week. It was in line with International Women's Day, meaning that every employee that the young women met were all women who worked at AEG and the O2. Lorna, who we worked with, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, essentially stormed around the O2 going, it's for the children. So these young girls were in dressing room 1. They were on the stage. They were up in the rafters. They were allowed in places that some of the staff aren't allowed because Lorna understood the opportunity that we had. That's been the reception we've received across our pilots. And we have pilots coming up in warehouse settings with Sunbelt and the team sort of formerly Wasserman. We've got office-based ones with a handful of agencies. We're looking at going in some more arenas to show those kind of spaces.
Venues like the QE2.
Absolutely. So what's so exciting about the pilot is it gives us an opportunity with CEC sort of holding our hands and making sure that we're staying aligned, having really good communication with the schools that we've built some trust with. It allows us to test this format and understand where the sort of challenges are. So the O2, I want to be really honest with you, the O2 wasn't slated to be our first pilot. Our first pilot was supposed to be up in Leeds. And the reason it didn't go ahead was because of timing. So within Power of Events, we've done a big learning there within this pilot phase where we now better understand that although on paper we might have 5 weeks worth of lead time, once you put school terms into that and you're losing a week to half term and you're losing most of the week before and most of the week after because it was half term, it means actually I've only got 2 weeks to promote this and pull it over the line. What we're able to develop in this sort of 6-month pilot period is we are learning those things for industry so that when we launch in September, we will have done it in so many different settings with so many different businesses, of big businesses, small businesses, and we will be able to really comfortably and simply guide industry through this process.
It creates a very well-informed toolkit that, as Sophie said, is amenable to different sectors, different regions, different size of groups, different types of operation, different settings, so that we go into it and we launch late the summer and in the early autumn. The toolkit is totally appropriate for all different types of industry organisations and their settings, as well as type of schools. And that's the learning we need to do. Much as we did with the Schools Engagement Programme, we ran a 3-month pilot in the east of England. For the first 2 or 3 months, I delivered about 30 engagements on my own just to test it into the schools so that we understood and didn't then try and launch it to an industry that is rightfully sceptical about these things, rightfully got more than enough other challenges going on out in the big wide world. Make it a no-brainer, give them a toolkit that is completely appropriate and scalable nationally across all the sectors so it goes as big and fast as a schools engagement without saying to anyone, we can't help you, and so on. So trying to sort of, on behalf of the industry, learn to get it so fit for purpose that it becomes really easy for them to engage with.
Is there anywhere that you mentioned obviously the timings of the school term, but is there anywhere else that you're seeing kind of resistance or friction?
Not really. I mean, I'll be honest with you. We'd love to. The only resistance or friction is there's a few things going on in the big wide world right now where people are, from their business perspective, dealing with challenges, and we are very empathetic to that, very sensitive to that. We're not expecting people to respond, within the hour, within the day when we send them an email or we try and get a book and a call and discuss with them. Though weirdly, this is almost like a value-driven, purpose-driven reaction to that. And actually, it's quite a nice way of showing that they can still invest in the future, and there is hope for the future, even though there's some not nice stuff going on right now in the current geopolitical situation. So I think it also gives a sense of empowerment and a sense of future protection, that the industry will still survive, and there'll be need for future leaders and engagement with young people. So it's almost like a positive reaction to that in a way, rather than sort of battening down the hatches and reacting, not like we did in COVID so much, but I think we're a lot more resilient as an industry than that, and we can juggle the two. I think the only friction resistance is probably from our side, not to go too fast, too quick, learn, develop, engage with the industry, hear different feedback. And feedback is one of the biggest things that we're doing with the pilots and so on. So we're getting feedback from the children through the schools, feedback from the schools, the careers advisors, feedback from the hosts, the employers that have put forward their environments, and feedback from Sophie and the team working on it. Collating all that is really important. So that's the main reason for doing it all. But no friction, no resistance. I mean, even the model that we're proposing to fund this, schools engagement program is funded by brilliant sponsors, spending quite a few £1,000s each by putting forward their business to promote the actual program within their region. Some regions we have 2 or 3 sponsors, some regions we have 10. And that can be restrictive for a number of businesses, especially if they haven't got big budgets or they're not particularly large organisations. The model for the schools engagement program is each individual school experience of work per person, £35. If you're a small business and you want to have 10 children come through for a day, £350. Now, that might sound like a lot of money, and I appreciate that is to some people, but the amount of time and effort and pain that we're taking away from someone opening up their doors, days and days of the work they'd have to do, the concern and so on, we're taking all that away for £350, which basically just pays for Sophie's time to manage it for a few days over a period of the week's lead up. Some organisations, even for the pilot, where we said we'll do it for free, have offered to pay for it, which was mind-blowing. That's lovely, and we will obviously say yes, because we're a not-for-profit and we need as much funding and cash to enable our resources to go at a pace. But that's amazing. So we're trying to make it as accessible and not overbearingly cost-wise, but justifying that value is taking a lot of the pain, a lot of the learning, a lot of the stuff that might be a barrier to doing it for, and you can pick and choose. If you do 5 kids, £175. If you do 20, £700. Totally your call, whatever you feel comfortable with. So hopefully it's a bit more accessible to a bigger range of businesses.
And just to clarify, the intention is to also have pre-pledged places, whether that's associations or larger businesses or like lottery funding, whatever it may be. Our intention is to have pre-pledged places, allowing smaller businesses that are really enthusiastic to get involved but don't have 350 quid, don't have 700 quid, whatever it may be. Those places are pre-funded, and it will be public knowledge how many spaces there are that we can deliver without there being a cost attached to it. To sort of answer your question as well, in terms of those sort of frictions and conflict, those initial conversations that we've had, and we've been really transparent up front that this is in development, it's a brand new thing that we're working on. The friction has been, but it's going to be really big, it's going to be a massive thing that we have to deliver. And if anything, we're walking it back in those initial conversations and going, okay, I love the enthusiasm that you want to do this massive thing, but actually to be compliant, you need to hit 4 steps. I'm not going to tell you because that's our little secret, but there are sort of 4 things they need to hit, and that's it. It's really simple, really easy. I think our challenge as Power of Event over the next kind of couple of years is going to be around the comms of, actually it's really simple to get involved in this. The delivery of this is really easy, and it's making sure that businesses understand that they understand the simplicity of creating a really meaningful and inspiring opportunity for these young people to come and see our amazing industry.
Yeah, and that's the work we're doing. That's what we're needing the funding for. And on the pledges side, we've approached a number of key grant funders and associations. Any large organisation in the industry that feels that they would like to pledge 50, 100 places for their region, their sector, their service area. I don't want to give anything away with the conversations that we've already been having, but there's certainly no friction or resistance to understanding that model. So, example, association or a large venue in a very well-established city might go, do you know what, I want to pledge 50 or 100 places for this region, or for my area of corporate events or exhibitions or production services or music or concerts, whatever it might be, because I want a number of our members or a number of my local peers in the region to use that pledge, so that they can just literally not even worry about the cost side of it, if that is a concern, and just open their doors and draw down on that pledge for that area, that region, that association sort of service area. So multiple ways of being funded and executed and engaging. Everybody is invited to be part of it, therefore.
Rick, obviously you used to run your own agency, Smile. Are these placements that you would have genuinely offered if they'd been available when you were running the agency?
I mean, a lot of the great time I had at Smile, now known as Identity, is referencing as a leader in an agency or as a business leader. When I would have been approached by someone to do this, immediately would have sort of flagged time, resource, cost, experience, reputation, and that's a big part of what I've sort of imposed on Sophie and the team. Of we break them down and we answer those questions in this great toolkit for anybody. Because, you are going at a million miles an hour. There's a lot going on in the industry, some great, some not so great. Some industry conversations we have are, I need more staff, I can't cope with my capacity, it's overwhelming. Others are, we've had a rubbish start to the year, we're in survival mode, budgets are all down, we're really concerned about the pipeline. There's all sorts of different distractions, and then suddenly you're another one, not top of the list. Though there's always still that purpose-driven value will to do something right. And actually, it's, as I said before, a nice distraction to all the other stuff that is very event industry planning orientated. So I have put myself in that position. I think it's, if someone's very eloquently and simply says, we'll do the hard grunt for you, we've already done it, you're going to get a nice bit of thanks and profile. You're going to do it for your local area and region as well, your local school. So there's a nice affinity there. We'll make it really simple for the content. You don't have to worry about the insurance and the safeguarding. We've got that sorted, and we can demonstrate how simple that is for you now. So I'll give you a good example, particularly in the warehouse scenario or maybe on site. Having 13, 14-year-olds wandering around a warehouse full of kit and trip hazards and height restrictions or on site. Historically, most insurance companies or event companies from that perspective have gone, the insurance company will allow them to have over 16s unless they're accompanied, and certainly can't touch or walk in any sort of environment that's working, whether it's warehouse or on site, or over 18s if they're unaccompanied. That's where insurance has gone. So most of those conversations stop just there. What we've learned, and what perhaps isn't common knowledge, is that the CEC has confirmed that these are now school trips. Because they're not week-long things, they're deemed to be school trips, which falls under the insurance of the school. So that opens up a whole, as long as it's compliant with a certain risk assessment, which we've got templates for, which we can provide. The schools have already provided us with examples of them, and they're not too complicated. They just need to go through that risk assessment that's signed off with the school and the employee. Once that risk assessment is delivered, which you do anyway, and that's not unusual for companies, it goes under the school trip. So it's as if they're going to Chesterfield Zoo or the Science Museum. They have to do this. It comes under the same school trip insurance. That's one of the biggest barriers we've heard from so many organisations who would love to take kids onto a build on site, or would love to take them around a warehouse, but the insurance company has said have to be at least 16 plus and accompanied, or 18 if not accompanied. So now 13, 14-year-olds can go in these amazing environments, still accompanied, still safety orientated first, with the risk assessment done. But that's just one example of many barriers that would just stopped it dead.
And I think just adding to that, as Rick said, it's a school trip. Schools know how to deliver a school trip, and that's language and comms that they're being sent from CEC. They are ready to deliver this. They're ready to come into our businesses, into our industry, because they've been told it's a school trip. So they know straight away, okay, that my liability, we need to make sure that we get from the school to the business. There's no expectation for the businesses to put on that transport. They understand because of the school's liability, there has to be 2 members of staff to attend. So you as a business are never going to be on your own with a group of kids. There's always going to be 2 members of staff there as well. It means that approach of this is a school trip, it makes it simpler for everyone, simpler for industry, simpler for schools.
That kind of leads me on to my next question. Where does the responsibility kind of sit for this between schools and employers and intermediaries? How does that work?
I think historically that fell very much to the individual kids. Back when I was in school, it fell to me suddenly in year 11 to go and find a work experience placement. And that wasn't fair. I didn't know anybody. So now that is much more equally shared across kind of conduits like us. The CEC wasn't a thing when I was a kid, and they were set up literally to support careers and enterprise in schools. That's what they do. It absolutely falls on the schools themselves as well. Almost every school in the country now has a careers lead. They have somebody responsible to meet these different criteria. If anything, the companies with the least actual obligation is businesses. So we're inviting you to come and get involved. We've done the hard work and the legwork for you. The schools have the resources internally to come and see you, and it's really easy to deliver. So we're actively inviting industry to come and get involved in this work.
And responsibility falls with the industry. We've all heard a million times, and we have this every week. Oh, I just fell into this industry. They ain't good enough. they ain't good enough on so many levels. We should be more professional than that. We are in competition with so many other industries that are fighting for that really good talent and, more importantly, that diverse talent from loads of different backgrounds. So we need to be fit for purpose and not relying on people falling into this industry anymore. And with respect to the next generation coming through, they're a little bit more motivated to go and seek out as well those that are welcoming with open arms, with a structure that they can buy into. We need to step up as well. And if we're able to help companies that have lots of other distractions and priorities get involved in that, attract in a competitive marketplace the next generation to our industry, which across the globe, as you've well reported many times, is thriving and growing. There will be bumps along the road, of course, but generally live experiences are only going one way. Therefore, the whole industry needs a more diverse, inclusive, representative workforce coming through with all sorts of new different skill sets that we need to attract to our industry to keep that thrive of growth going, rather than not seeing us as a viable career and going into other industries that have a better setup to attract them and engage with them and inspire them to consider it as a career. So it's our responsibility as well. And we don't want to put pressure on industry. We were taking that off them. We're trying to make it as simple as possible just to go, yeah, of course we'll help in the little way we can, and you've done most of the hard work for us. So it's everyone's responsibility.
And it's working. The exciting thing is it's already working. At Convex back in February, we had a young girl come over to us who's in her first year at uni, and she came over like we were the Duke of Edinburgh Award that's been going for years, and thought that she was one of hundreds and hundreds of kids. And she came over, she said, "Oh, you guys came into my school a few years ago." I swear to God, I screamed in this girl's ear. It was so exciting to meet her. And she's not the first one. We've met dozens and dozens of young people who have already been impacted by the school's engagement programme, and that's one touch point. We're in front of these kids for an hour at most, and they're then signposted to the Power Events website or signposted to various different resources. That's the number we're actually meeting, so you can speculate that it's considerably higher than that. But when we have multiple touch points, when they are inspired in school, then they come into businesses, imagine how many kids that's going to be, how exciting that's going to be, how much more measurable that's going to be.
And how much more informed they are when they start in their career of, thanks to the support that the industry's given to the Power Events, that full scope and breadth of understanding of the wider industry, rather than just historically being quite channeled in, I'm going to do this in this sector, or this is my role, and this is my, they don't. Thankfully, the Power Events platform offers them already, which we point them to straight away, a more overview story of the full breadth. But yeah, I mean, that lady that came up to us, who's now studying event management at university, I believe.
First year.
I mean, that's amazing for Sophie to be, but that's only 18 months.
Yeah.
So she must have been sort of just end of 16. So
Absolutely.
2 years. That was the fourth pilot we ever did, right?
Yeah. We're starting to sort of let our ambassadors know. So in the same way when you donate blood, a couple of weeks later you get a little text, you feel good about yourself. We want to do the same thing for our ambassadors, that when we meet young people or we hear from our university partners, our apprenticeship providers, etc., that they've got a young person that was involved in the school's engagement programme, we want to let our ambassadors know. So when Jess comes over to us at Convex, I was so excited. I asked her what school she was at, roughly the time of year, looked on the portal, and it was Rick that delivered it, so I didn't get to send my text.
Of course.
Oh. But she was clearly inspired.
Well,
so.
the fourth one in, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, so somehow bumbled my way through that one, because it took me about 30 to learn how to do it properly. No, it didn't. It's fine. But yeah, it's all good.
So the Power of Events is obviously, you've got the schools engagement program. This isn't a replacement for that.
Absolutely
But
not.
also, I mean, so you've got the experience of work program as well. Are you just a next gen organisation now?
No. Our mission is very clearly stated right from the beginning when we reached out to hundreds of businesses in 2022, early 23, to support a not-for-profit that would simply answer the question, where's the one place you can go to learn about the UK events industry? It didn't exist. It was a massive black hole. There was wonderful work going on across associations and trade media across certain sectors. A member of parliament, a teacher, a 13-year-old, a business editor from the Times to go and find that one place to learn just what is the overview of the UK events industry. What does it entail? What are the sectors? What's the infrastructure behind it? That never existed. So obviously COVID exposed the fact that we weren't understood enough, we weren't valued enough, we weren't respected enough to either influence policy or get a lot of news headlines. So the industry said yes. They created the Power Events. We were just the conduit. They funded it and continued fully to fund it. Power Events is all about supporter donations, partner donations, and sponsors, obviously, the programme, the schools engagement. Effectively, that's our number one mission, and always has been, create better understanding, respect, and value for the power of the UK events industry. Obviously, the schools engagement programme creates a lot of respect and understanding for a certain audience, the next generation. So they understand it and consider it a career. But a lot of the industry, probably half our whole target audience is people already in the industry. And a lot of them come up to us. I've met at your meeting show, at the Showman show, at Confex recently, and many others, of younger people, or just when I've introduced it to people who have been in the industry 10, 15 years, who have been in a certain channel, in a certain business, a certain sector, and then they see the platform, they go, I don't know any of this. I didn't know all these associations. I didn't know all these different publications. I didn't know about these LinkedIn groups. That events calendar we have with all your meeting show events and the M&IT awards and many others. But there's 100 on there from all different sectors. There's the LinkedIn Facebook groups that particularly freelancers may engage with that you might want to engage with. There's a huge amount of support organisations profiled on the platform that might promote DEI, sustainability, skills-based practice, accessibility, that have come out of little areas of the industry but don't have a huge profile. A big part of our work every week, every day, is just that everybody in the industry or anyone who wants to learn about the industry from outside has a window, has a map of as much of an expansive story in a really bite-sized way of being able to engage with and explore at their own volition rather than having to trawl through hundreds of websites. M&IT, meeting show, profiled separately as a trade press organisation and as a big event show, as much as another association is, or a support organisation, or a university. And then obviously on the other side, you've got hundreds and hundreds of business supporters who have funded the Power event, all have their own individual profile. And you can group them in a little filter between what type of business they are, and then for the next generation, you can actually filter whether they offer internships or placements. For all sorts of different people who want to learn more about the industry they're in, or want to learn more about it from an external perspective, whether they're 12 years old at school, or an MP, or a business person, or a potential investor, this is the map of the industry. It's been our North Star, no pun intended, but it's been our North Star because that's what the industry wanted. They wanted a map. And then, as our mantra is, support, share and suggest. Support our programs, support the Power events, give us a few quid, brilliant. Share, advocate it, but then the most important one is suggest. And the reason we went to 50 industry events last year, meeting tens of thousands of industry professionals, was to ask them, this is the most collaborative, inclusive, representative organisation that showcased the events industry has ever existed. The industry's never collaborated on anything together. What should we do with it? The first thing they suggested was the schools engagement programme. They suggested it. We made it happen. And now, as I said to you at the beginning, they've suggested that there should be a next stage because they'd really like to do work experience, and it aligns suddenly that the big push with Equal X at the same time. So the industry's suggesting this. And then the industry also suggested event apprenticeships, come under the wing of the Power event. So, Candice in our team who was working with Richard on that, is now promoting that a bit more alongside the providers. We're 3 years old, right? Most of the organisations that we work with are decades old. So we might sound like we're well established and we've been going forever, but we're just starting this journey. So yes, the first thing was the Schools Engagement Programme. Within 18 months, it's the experience of work. Next year, there'll be some left field suggestions in the industry, and it could be anything. Who knows? But, so our prime focus is that map, that understanding, respect and value. But the industry has suggested, and remember, this is funded by the industry for the industry. So they tell us what to do. We just deliver it because they're busy with their day jobs.
I was going to say, you're 3 years in. Do you feel like you're winning the battle to kind of explain to people what the power of events is? I remember certainly when it first started, I had a few people coming up to me at trade shows and being like, do you know what that is?
You know what, the fact they're asking. That was our mission, wasn't it?
I think different people interpret it differently. There are absolutely more and more these days now people who come over and say, oh, you do the Schools Engagement Programme? And it's like, yes, we do. And all this other stuff. Come and see all the other stuff that we do. But it's starting to really matter in really meaningful ways. Was it Martin's Law that referenced the 7 sectors?
Yes, so we have some people on our governance board who are, I won't mention them particularly, but, like John from Live, I am going to reference John from Live, Annie Chabib from UKCMA, who, I think Annie was in a committee at the Houses of Parliament yesterday presenting to DCMS, talking about the Terrorism Act, talking about Martin's Law. And we were told by them a few weeks ago, because they're on our governance board and help us with the Power events, that the 7 sectors are now referenced as being fully inclusive across Martin's Law going forward. And the 7 sectors, which has never been defined before for the Power events, so we did that with the industry. They came up with the 7 sectors, those 30 words. That's pretty cool because it's resonating. The fact that at the beginning people were asking what the Power events is, so are we. This is new. There's no template to work from. The industry's never supported or backed. We've never created anything like this. So I'm not going to apologise for the fact that we don't have all the answers. On the front page of everything we've ever put on every presentation on our website, our mission statement to create better understanding, respect and value for the power of the UK events industry. That's all it's ever been. The offshoot programs of that will still all align with that, as does the experience of work, as does the schools engagement, as does, I've had people come up at your meeting show, younger people, who have not done in the schools program and so on, but by their employer or supporter were introduced to the Power Events platform and have come up to me and gone, are you Rick from Power Events? What have I done? Thank you for the platform. I had no idea what sort of industry I was walking into. I didn't know where to go to discover sort of how my business, my first job, or even guys girls in their mid-30s who maybe wanted to sort of progress or just develop their engagement with the industry, whether it's through communities or personal development, or just maybe seek in their same job of logistics or production, go into a different sector. How are they aware of what the scope of the opportunity was? If there's a map in front of them defining the sectors and all the organisations, whether they're new to the industry or they've been in it for some time, they now have a place just to help their personal or business journey develop without spending hours and hours and hours trying to find it. It's there in one place. So that matters a lot to us. So yeah, we are still making up as we go along, and we're proud of that because it means it's not set in stone, and we listen to the industry, and so it's shaped together. And that malleability, I think that flexibility is so important.
How does it compare with running an agency? What have you learnt about yourself from doing this?
That's a great question. Running an agency is very different. You're all 100% passionate and focused about delivering one thing. That's amazing experiences to an audience, and the client is happy, and that one client is happy, okay, at that time. And obviously there's multiple projects going on. Flip that the other way. Our pressure, our audience, is the whole industry. We've asked them all for money. We've asked them all for advocacy. So we've got tens of thousands of existing or potential clients all at the same time demanding, rightfully, that if they give a bit of advocacy and a few quid, we have to deliver. I had an agency of 130, 140 staff. There's 3 of us. So you've gone from an agency of many servicing clients, often at the same time, but individual events with 3, 4, 5, 10 people on that team, to tens of thousands of organisation industry with 3 of us trying to make them feel that this is worth supporting. So there's a bit of an induced pressure there. But with the clarity of comms, Sophie delivers 80-90% of the whole Power Events activation. I don't know what I am. I'm not the looks, I'm probably not the brains, but I'm the driver. We're going this way. And I try and help industry engage with it, funding, do a lot of the industry events. Sophie delivers it. We work brilliantly together. And I'm really proud that Martin Fullard has done something for me, put Sophie forward in front of me when she was looking for an opportunity. I'm very lucky. I've Smile, there was 3 or 4, of my fellow directors. We're all sort of 4 sides of a square. And we had very different remits, and we respected that and worked very well together. I was lucky to find Sophie, and she somehow manages to work with me, and I managed to work with her without blowing too much, smoke.
Remote working.
We meet once a month, minimum. But no, she's amazing. She's embraced a completely new, unscripted program that the industry's never done before, which I think is what really inspires her. She's as much involved as making the plan and delivering it, while I'm sort of saying, yes, let's sign it off, let's do it. She activates it. That's really powerful. And we do, I think, a lot more work between the 2 of us. And there's Candice, obviously, as well, and Brian and Simon that support and the governance. But 2 or 3 of us are doing the work of, when we say that we're a team of 3 or 4, people just think that's bonkers when we're, to your point, servicing such a big industry.
To clarify, that is bonkers.
That is bonkers.
It's absolutely bonkers. But as Rick said, and the output of Power of Events is because we worked smarter, not harder. So with the schools engagement programme, for example, we ran with 3 regions for a whole academic year, learnt how to do it really well, and then immediately invested in an online portal. So that online portal streamlined the admin and allowed us to go from 3 to 9 in just under a year. So we are constantly listening to experts, listening to other people in industry and other people in relevant industries. So talking about the schools programme that the education provided. I bring up CEC repeatedly because the work wouldn't happen without them. Their generosity in sitting in calls and helping us develop it, that we have only been able to achieve what we have because everyone around us has been so generous with their time and generous with their resources.
It's really important to remember that Glastonbury, AG Europe, Live Nation, London Marathon events, British cycling events, Notting Hill Carnival,
He
Goodwood
can do
Festival
this all
of
day.
Speed, Identity, Cheerful 21st, Strata, DRPG, Principal Global Events, TFI Lodestar, XL London, ICC Wales, EICC, NEC Birmingham, I could go on. Never before they all supported anything. Now that is amazing and inspiration for us, but it's also a huge amount of pressure that we can't take the mick out of that advocacy. So yeah, we're really proud of that, and it's our inspiration to just develop, grow, listen to the industry, and make it fit for purpose for what the industry needs. That's really the modus operandi.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Rick and Sophie, for joining me today on The Meeting Room.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.